Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment or medications if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. Visit bewelltexas.org.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 259 of the Alamo Audible Podcast. This is your host, Jared Kalmas, joined as always by my great co-host, Adrian Bermudez. Thank you, Adrian, for joining me. I feel like we've talked a lot lately. We've been grinding out these podcasts. This is our third of the week, but we never stop. We never slow it down.
Never, ever that. That's the last thing we do, Jared. And yes, indeed, it is homecoming week. And back at home in the sweet Alamo Dome, UTSA Roadrunners football returns. Where, Jared, as you delightfully reminded me, UTSA has not lost a football game.
Undefeated at home in 2024.
Undefeated at home in 2024. Jeff Traylor known for an impeccable home record in the Alamo Dome. That has not yet been broken, my friends. And when all your spirit has fallen down, just maybe so, there's something to hold on to. And look, who knows? FAU also just 2 wins on the season. And dare I say, in the same fashion as UTSA, at least last week, where they outgained their opponent, North Texas, in total offense, did better than North Texas on third downs, and still somehow, despite having a lead late in the game, fumbled the win and goes down by 4 points to UNT at home, Jared, FAU, in Boca. There's a lot of parallels here. FAU and UTSA both crawling and scratching for their lives in 2024.
Mm-hmm. I think both rosters have some pretty talented players on them. I think, they have a lot of skill, a lot of size, a lot of strength, a lot of speed, but they don't have a lot of wins. So it's really an interesting matchup. I think both teams are better than their record shows. Well, I don't know if you can say that about UTSA anymore, but they have the potential to be a lot better than the record shows. I thought both of these schools would be bowl teams this year. And I don't know, I think maybe FAU may still end up there. I'm pretty on the fence about UTSA. But the Owls,
I would agree.
The Owls have a path for sure.
I would agree. So look, again, FAU is also a 2-win team, but I think a more impressive 2-win team than UTSA is. I mean, nevertheless, 2-4 is 2-4. We're both 2-4. But I think FAU has been a little bit more apt of a football team than UTSA has through their 6 games of play. And their first conference game was like in week 2. They had to play Army in week 2, I'm pretty sure. So that was no easy task. And
their 24-7 loss to Army is looking a lot better now than it did at that time. Yeah, Army's still undefeated, and they've just mauled through teams.
This is true. Just true. Good point. UTSA right now, I think, has only self-respect left to play for, right? I mean, do they have enough pride to still show up? Because it feels like a large part of the spirit of Roadrunners football, the desire to go out there and play together, winning football for one another, is not present. Do they have enough pride to restore that? But just like FAU, right? Better offensive output in both of the last 2 losses. Well, UTSA's last 2, FAU's 1. In position to win both of their last 2 games that they lost. In position to win both of them late in those games, right? I'm not saying I'm not saying it's impossible for UTSA to sneak away with a win on Saturday against FAU, right? It seems very, very far-fetched, but maybe it's not as improbable as we actually think. I'm not bullish, okay? But it's more than a puncher's chance, I think, that UTSA has against FAU. I think it's more than just a puncher's chance.
Favored. They're favored.
How about that? Vegas always knows, right? And so, Jeff Traylor continues to sort of look at least in his press conferences, look at UTSA's mistakes as if they're very quickly fixable and easily addressable. We're over here banging on the table, screaming we're halfway through the season and nothing's been fixed and things are getting worse. But maybe to a degree, he's right. Things can get fixed quickly. It just doesn't seem like that could possibly be the case. Also, Jared, another reason why it's going to be very, very difficult for UTSA to win against FAU and their winnable game against Tulsa the following week in October is because Roadrunners players that participated in last Saturday's brawl, post-game brawl against Rice, are looking to be punished by way of suspensions. So there are going to be Roadrunners out with suspensions. We don't know who. We don't know how many. We don't know for how long they're going to be suspended for. All we know is that Traylor sort of come out and confirmed, yes, suspensions are going to be dealt.
Yeah, anytime the athletic director sends a message out, to the press, there's obviously going to be some suspensions coming. But also, the injuries are just mounting up for UTSA as well. So yeah, suspensions on top of the injuries, and the depth chart this week is looking pretty light for sure. It's not the depth chart we thought we would see at this point in the season if you were to go back to August for sure.
Right.
But I think like the optimistic point though is like you don't have to have everything fixed if you're UTSA to win this game, right? FAU has their own problems as well. They've probably been a little bit better than UTSA, probably a little bit better resume, but the Roadrunners are playing at home where they are very good. It is homecoming. And I think we've seen a lot from Owen McCallum at quarterback. And it sounds like FAU may not even have their starting quarterback who's not played very well. If they didn't pull their starting quarterback from what we saw like the first 4 weeks of the season, you can't expect a whole lot from the redshirt freshman that's maybe going to make his first start this week.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about it. So, FAU starting quarterback Cam Fancher. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. I'm not sure where the emphasis on the A is, but Cam Fancher was reportedly or confirmed by Tom Herman today in his presser dealing with a significant, quote, turf toe injury. He's questionable this weekend. Was in a boot on Monday. He did a little bit of stuff on Tuesday in practice, and he looked okay, but he's day to day, and he's questionable for Saturday. Herman confirmed the MRI did show some damage. So that's a significant, albeit he was not great underneath center, Jared. 5 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, just past the 1,000-yard mark on the season here. But had his issues. Behind him is redshirt freshman from Georgia. He was redshirted at Colorado where he was a true freshman. Didn't see any playing time. Redshirted. Transferred over to FAU. That's Kason Weissman. Kason Weissman has only seen action in 3 games this season so far at FAU. He's only thrown 13 passes. So not too much is really known to be expected. What can you expect from FAU at the quarterback position? Either way, it doesn't look like too much of a threat for UTSA's defense, who's been fairly sound.
Yeah, and I think even if Fancher is going to play, I don't think that he's a guy that's really going to take control of games for the most part. I think at his best, he doesn't hurt the offense. I watched their season opener against Michigan State, and he really struggled. It was really, really ugly. And, he was definitely better last week against North Texas for sure. But Marshall fans weren't upset to lose him, even though, we saw in the bowl game what they had behind Fancher at quarterback, and they still did not really bemoan Fancher going to the portal all that much. But I think Wyzen is a high ceiling guy. I mean, he was a pretty high level recruit coming out of high school. The recruiting analysts were pretty high on him, and he ended up at Colorado. So, to transfer that quickly, even though he knew that, Prime's son only was going to be there for another year, probably not a good sign for how he's performing in practice for Colorado. But if he's willing to take off with his legs and, abandon the pocket, he could really present some challenges for UTSA's defense because he is a really athletic guy. He's got some pretty good speed to him.
Yeah, it was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school and ranked ESPN as the number 25 quarterback in the class. So, he was highly touted coming out of high school to a degree, did sign with Colorado. We'll have to see. He's not the only one that's injured, Jared. They've also got not quite a stress fracture yet, but apparently the signs are pointing that it's getting towards becoming a stress fracture. That's for senior wide receiver Milan Tucker. And he's a guy who's been a pretty consistent threat for them and had a big long catch against UNT. And that's essentially where the injury happened. It had already been a little bit sore. Then he really messed things up. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to play against UTSA or not. If he does, I'd imagine he'd be limited.
Yeah, they do have some pretty good weapons on the offense, though, to look out for. There's a receiver, Omari Hayes, that's really good. He's a really great athlete, super physical. He's got 371 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season, but a guy that's got a really high ceiling. And I think with better quarterback play, his numbers could be much, much higher. So he's definitely the number one threat out wide to look for.
He's a sophomore, Jared. Omari Hayes is just a sophomore there for FAU. And they also have a sophomore at tight end, Wyatt Sullivan, who's 6'4", 250 pounds, and he's got the 3rd most receptions on the roster as a sophomore at tight end. And so, yeah, it looks like there's some good receiving talent, youthful, good receiving talent there at FAU. Indeed.
Yeah, Wyatt Sullivan's got some awesome speed at tight end.
Yeah.
He reminded me of some of those tight ends that were at North Texas during the Seth Luttrell era that just felt like they could get open on the seam route pretty much anytime that they wanted to, anytime they called it. He had a really, really long touchdown completion this last week. So I'm sure they're going to work him more into the offense, especially with, was it Tucker? Was the other quarterback that was hurt? Yeah. With Tucker out.
Yeah, definitely so.
They got a running back, CJ Campbell. That's super good as well. He's a really shifty guy, really hard to bring down. And I want to say he's maybe their 2nd or 3rd leading receiver. Yeah, he's their 2nd leading receiver. 16 catches for 171 yards. So pretty good to be averaging 11 yards per catch as a running back.
Yeah, it is impressive. And he's not bad running the ball either, nearly 5 yards per carry. So there's 2 junior running backs. That's CJ Campbell and then Zuberi Mobley.
Mm-hmm.
Both have a lot of carries. Both they get nearly an even distribution. CJ Campbell gets slightly more, but 77 carries for CJ Campbell, 64 carries for Mobley, right? And Mobley actually has over 5 yards per carry. 6 touchdowns for Campbell, 4 touchdowns for Mobley. So very even distribution that you see from these two. And they're good. They're both really good at running the ball, and it's probably their strength as an offense.
Their offensive line looks solid as well. Very lean, athletic guys, right? Not a whole lot of extra fat on them. They move around quite well, open up some holes. They can move out in space. So, they've got some pieces. I think they're missing some of those dynamic playmakers that you've seen from FAU, in the Kiffin years, right? Guys that really feel like with any touch of the ball, they could really blow a game open. So I don't know if they have that level of playmaker on that offense, but I think they've got a good foundation. They can put some points on the board, and it won't be an easy day for the UTSA defense by any means.
They're missing the captain of the offense and quarterback. They need a quarterback that can go out there and make those plays. They've got all the pieces to put around a quarterback. If UTSA could get, FAU's execution or if FAU could get UTSA's execution from quarterback, then, we'd have both pieces of the puzzle, what each other is lacking in other department. So, Jared, when we see FAU on offense, running is where they're scary, is where they're going to be able to do, I think, the most damage to UTSA. I don't think there's much to be worried about. Just a lot of question marks at quarterback, considering the injuries. Even without them, it's not an enormous threat in Fancher. So it is what it is, but the FAU quarterback position just isn't one for UTSA to be scared of. The running back game, yeah, it can wear us down. I think they can very easily wear us down defensively if the offense can't answer a little bit of those long extended drives where FAU's running backs are just moving the chains for minutes and minutes at a time, and then eventually getting into the end zone. Can UTSA match that? give the defense a break they need and keep up with the scoring from FAU and the yardage from FAU's running backs.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Adrian, because like when I was looking at the stat matchup, that was the thing that really stood out to me the most. Is both of these defenses are really good about preventing third down conversions. Both of the offense are really bad about getting third down conversions. So I think we're going to see a lot of punts in the Alamo Dome on Saturday. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting game of football we'll see all year long. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it won't be too much of a snooze fest for the many, many visiting alumni that are going to come to the Alamo Dome to see the 2 and 4 Roadrunners at their homecoming day. I would hope not. So, Jared, FAU on defense. Who are the names to watch there? What do they do defensively that's really good that UTSA is going to have to be good against?
Yeah, I think their pass coverage is really great, which is not good news for UTSA, as they've really had to rely on the passing game to really do much of anything on offense this year. As the running game's just been pretty much MIA for the most part. But 2 guys to look out for. They have a cornerback, Kazir Brown, as well as a safety, Philip Dunham, that are both great in coverage. Both of those guys have 2 picks on the year. And they just play really fundamental, sound football in the secondary, right? There were a few receivers turned loose against North Texas, but even some of UNT's best plays, it's like, damn, the coverage was right there. There was one sideline catch from number 7 on North Texas that, I mean, it almost went back the other way for a pick 6. Like the defender was right there, and that receiver just made an awesome catch. Had great hands on it. And then, because the defender went for the pick, there was no one behind him. Just turned around for a touchdown. So I don't trust UTSA's receiving core to make those kind of plays right now. So I don't think UTSA will see the same level of success. But you got to keep in mind too, I mean, North Texas was like a top 5, top 10 passing attack in the country heading into that game, and they really got limited by what FAU was able to do on defense. So it's gonna be tough sledding, I think, for the Roadrunners to find success anywhere on offense against FAU.
FAU, man, outgains North Texas 519 to 484, goes 8 for 15 on their third downs. Meanwhile, UNT only 4 for 12 on third down. They limit them to only 7.5 yards per pass completion, and Jared, an interception as well from UNT. So FAU really, really well. And actually FAU's running game, we were talking about just those running backs being really good in extending drives. 36 minutes of ball possession for FAU's offense. So really salty stuff. Really salty stuff. No reason for them to have lost that game, but you can say the same thing if you looked at UTSA's box score against, well, both ECU and Rice. Now,
yeah, I kind of wish I would have watched FAU's game against UConn, because they lost that one 48 to 14. I'm like, oh, what happened on that one? Like, that's pretty wild. But I really have no clue.
Yeah. The only under 100-yard rushing game from FAU was against Army. We had 42 yards rushing in that game, shockingly enough. But even against Michigan State in the opening week, 132 yards of rushing. And just really, really filthy altogether on the season. So I think that's the thing for UTSA. But back to their defense, I had to get sidetracked and backpedal there. But back to their defense, Jared. You're saying their pass rush is really, really good. And Owen McGowan, we've seen him sort of struggle in that situation, in getting the ball out really quickly, making that quick decision, knowing how to get rid of the ball. Because sometimes he extends these plays with his feet, he's rolling out, and he's bought himself some more time, but still can't find an open receiver for some reason. And instead of getting rid of the ball, he chooses to take a sack, or he'll get rid of it too late and put it in a really dangerous situation. We'll see the interception get thrown. We'll see him lose 7, 8, 10 yards on a sack. It's really, really ugly stuff. And if that hasn't gotten sharper, we didn't see too much of it against Rice, I don't think. But if that hasn't gotten sharper, we're in for really bad mistakes there against FAU, because they can cause those problems.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely one of the best pass defenses that UTSA is going to see really all year long. FAU's defense is where was that? Oh, I had a good stat on this and I lost it. Where was it? Oh yeah, they're number 9 in the country in EPA per pass attempt. So that's expected points added. Pretty much shows, are you limiting those big plays right? And to have your secondary as number 9, pretty impressive. And I don't think they play like super soft coverage or anything like that. Just keep everything in front of them. I think they're just fundamentally sound, and they've got good athletes, right? So, with how much we've seen UTSA struggle to get receivers open this year, and I don't know. FAU's
Jared.
got Chris Jones, Chisholm Ifeanyi, I think is how you pronounce
Oh,
his name.
yeah.
Those guys, they haven't racked up a lot of sacks this year, but they are pretty good about getting pressure on the quarterback. So, just like Adrian was saying, right, I think Owen's got to be really careful to avoid those negative plays, right? If you're going to take a sack, at least move forward in the pocket and try to regain some yardage before you go down. Move forward, not backwards, which I think he's done a pretty good job of in recent weeks. But finding that check down, he's been too slow to do that too often this season. Missed a first down against Rice. He had a guy, he could have hit the running back for an easy first down gain and just never looked at him. So I think those small mistakes are going to be really critical for UTSA in this game, because I just don't imagine that they're going to be able to put up 30 points or more on this defense. So when you're not having big explosive plays and putting up points, those small mistakes are going to be life or death for the Roadrunners.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. Jared, if you don't mind, I'd like to zoom out on FAU a little bit.
Yeah.
Now 6-12 under the Tom Herman regime. What sort of your temperature on the Owls at this juncture? How do you think Tom Herman's been doing in his job at FAU?
Not as good as I thought he would, to be honest with you. I'm a pretty big Tom Herman fan, and I thought obviously he was great at Houston, and inherited that program that was not in a pretty good spot, and made the most of what he had, and really stacked up talent there. Had some big recruiting wins, and then he was okay at Texas. I think that he pretty much performed like relative to what that program has been for most of at least my lifetime. Outside of the Vince Young Rose Bowl run. Obviously, Craig Sarkisian's got them back to like where their true ceiling is at, but I didn't think he was a bad coach at Texas per se. So I really thought him coming down a level to FAU with all the talent, in that Boca Raton area, and with the transfer portal now, just being able to get so many guys that are transferring back home from Power 4 schools where they won't get playing time, and I just expected a lot quicker from Herman, and I expected him to have a good quarterback, right? He has not found his Greg Ward yet. Maybe Kason Wiseman's going to be that guy. He's that dual threat like Greg Ward was, and can make things happen with his feet. So we'll see what he can do against the Roadrunners. But I mean, I was really expecting Herman to have a 9-win team at this point. Maybe not compete for a conference championship or anything, but definitely start to get them back to where they were at in the Lane Kiffin era, where no one really wanted to see them.
Right. That's right. That's absolutely right, Jared. Yeah, I agree. I thought that Tom was going to have much more success, and I really felt a lot of energy from him coming in and taking over. I thought he was a great fit. I was excited about the hire. But I don't know. And now whenever I watch him, and I've been paying some attention to him as we're getting ready for this matchup, I don't know. It seems strange. He had like some weird thing. He was rambling a lot in his press conference, and he had a weird quote or two that I thought were kind of strange. And he said, "We're on the doorstep of success. The next step is to kick the door in." And I thought it was pretty funny because we're sitting here like halfway through the season. And I'm like, I mean, buddy, at 2-4, I mean, it felt strangely parallel to UTSA. And I think there's a lot of parallels between FAU and UTSA. And we could even see, I don't know, like deja vu whenever we look back to FAU's Lane Kiffin era. Went unbelievable run, 26-13, gets 2 conference titles, and then FAU kind of falls down from grace a little bit, and they enter, the Willie Taggart era after that. Jeff Traylor had a run very, very similar to Lane Kiffin's. He's getting humbled here. Where's he going to end up at? Is he going to be able to pick it back up and get back to that sort of level of success? Perennial conference title or competing for conference titles for the next several years? Or is it going to kind of sink her down into a mediocre consistency? And I don't know. The answer remains to be seen. And Tom Herman, I did think he'd be able to get it turned around a little bit quicker. But it goes to show you, man, a team could have an incredible amount of success, and you're in the G5. And then things can change rather quickly. Next thing you know, you're having a 500 season or two, still just competing for bowl games. And then, you've gone through a couple of coaches and you're trying to figure out, how do we get back to where we were? Is it even possible? So it's finicky. It's very, very finicky. It's very, very fragile. It's important. I think really, really important for UTSA to not necessarily lay down and have a horrendous finish this season. We've got to see some fight here. And Jeff Traylor's got to show he still has the reins. He still has a hold of the reins to some degree, man. We have to see that. It's scary when I think about FAU's history and I look at UTSA right now.
Yeah,
that
both
makes
schools
sense?
are in places that are so talent rich. Like, you should always be competitive. You should always have a solid roster. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I hope that made sense.
Football's hard.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. Yeah, it's difficult. FAU and UTSA now, I think, is a very, very, very even matchup. They had a 3.5 point favored by a field goal, the Roadrunners, as this opened up in Las Vegas. So I don't know, Jared. Whatever you think about UTSA coming home, when you think about where they stand right now, when you think about FAU right now, to me, it's very, very hard to see UTSA being favored in this matchup, especially if you consider potential suspensions. I have to imagine it's not going to look too good. There's going to be a few names out. And just for the wherewithal, the overall psyche for this team, I just don't know if their wherewithal is going to be totally locked in to go and win a game at home against FAU. I just don't know. I don't know. I just can't be confident in this team after what I've seen over the last 6 games. I think it'd be crazy to pick them as favorites. I think it'd be crazy to pick the Roadrunners as favorites. That's how I feel right now. I don't know.
Based off the interviews that we've seen this week, it does not sound like it's been a very great week of practice for the Roadrunners. Everyone still seems pretty down, pretty shocked, pretty surprised. And, there's a lot of comments like, we have to celebrate the little things that we're doing right, which you would kind of hope UTSA would be past that point with where they are as a program,
Sure.
But if that's the basics they got to get down to, and, I guess that's what you got to do. I'm really worried too, because some of the guys that I saw involved in the brawl were at positions that are not very deep for UTSA. So if some of those guys do get suspended, it's going to be looking pretty raw out there, from a experience and veteran level, right? So we'll see what happens. I'm really curious to see how many guys get suspended. I mean, it's really just a question of how many and how long, right? We know for sure there's going to be some suspensions, but I just, like we said earlier, given the injury situation too, it's just 1 or 2 suspensions could really make a big difference for the Roadrunners. So I'm pretty concerned. I'm shocked to see the Roadrunners favored. I think it's solely because they're the home team and have a good record in the Alamo Dome. If I had to pick, I'm definitely going to take the Owls to win, unfortunately, even with their backup quarterback. But I think it's going to be a really ugly one, man. Like a 23-17 or something like that.
And the Owls, I'm sorry, that's 24-17 Owls, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
a
think
very
you're
ugly
pretty
slugfest. Trench warfare kind of game.
Yeah, punt warfare, allegedly. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. UTSA is 12th in the American Conference in points per game with just barely under 23 total. FAU, they have a little bit more of a functioning football machine. Not so much so, but they're averaging closer to 25 points per game. And so when you talk about very low scoring output, an ugly one to watch, I think you're absolutely right. I have FAU winning this game. I have FAU beating UTSA. And there's going to be a lot of penalties called because also FAU, 8.5 penalties per game.
Yeah, but I was just looking at that. What's our penalty relative to UTSA? Because that's going to make a big difference in this game. If both teams struggle to maintain drives, convert on third down.
8.5 penalties for FAU, UTSA 9.8, nearly 10 penalties per game. But the difference is, Jared, is that UTSA has the horses at running back to still get you those third down conversions. Whenever they screw themselves over on a third down and they end up getting put in a 3rd and 6 and a 3rd and 7 from a 3rd and 2, they're still getting those first downs. A little bit better of a with better of an output. So, yes, give me 25-21 FAU in the Alamodome to chalk up UTSA's 5th loss of the season, 2-5. But the thing about those really ugly games, Sharon, is that they are coin flip, and UTSA was in position to win both of their ugly games against ECU and Rice. If they pull one of these ugly ones out, what does that do for UTSA psyche?
Yeah, it's so needed right now, man. I mean,
are they one win away from just
they need
feeling
a confidence
like
boost?
They can do it. Yes, exactly. Right.
They need the jubilation, right? They need to come back together as a team, share a common success, a common victory. But I don't know if it's happening this week, man.
Yeah, we need the speakers blaring in the locker room after the game and the dance party. And yeah, we got to see it, dude. UTSA homecoming Saturday. Excited as you can get, I suppose. ESPN Plus. So there's your broadcast. I imagine a lot of people aren't making it out to the Alamodome for it. So at least turn it on your TV or record it.
Yeah, we'll see what that attendance is like, man. Oof.
We will not be doing over and unders on attendance because it'd be pretty
depressing. Too depressing.
Yeah, too depressing.
All right, guys. Well, like I said, we've had a lot of podcasts this week. We did a full breakdown of the Rice game, and we also kind of talked about what led UTSA to this point, right? They were on top of the group of 5. They retained their coach, retained most of their players. And yeah, we still see them, end up with a 2-4 record with some really bad, really ugly losses this year. So in that episode, we talked a little bit about kind of the systemic issues that have, potentially led to this point in UTSA's program history. But in our bonus episode on Patreon, we talked a little bit about what would fixing those look like? What are some tangible, concrete steps that UTSA could take, both this season as well as in the off season to try to turn things around? And when we were listing them out, it felt really daunting and intimidating, and wow, UTSA's really got their work cut out for them. But after I talked things through with Adrian in the recording, I was like, it's doable. It's pretty doable. Plenty of programs have done these kind of turnarounds, and with less talent and a worse head coach and less money and less support than the Roadrunners have. So hopefully this week is step 1 for UTSA to getting things back on track. But we'll see. And I hope you guys will check out that bonus episode on Patreon. A little as $5 a month will get you access. And as always, we want to say thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, including our Board of Trustees members. That includes Digiteek, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group, Andy Elizade at Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Secret LLC, Javon Townsend, president of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Ryan Squares, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Artisan Vapor and CBD, and Wayne Gonzalez and the Runners Rising Project.
Also, a big shout out to our big money donors and Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, our host of Around the Bird Bath, Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, UTSA King Bowser, Maddie, and Homefield Apparel, where you can use discount code UTSA once Homefield to save 15% on your first order.
Yeah, guys, the weather is cooling down. I think today is the last hot day of the year, per se. Great time to restock your hoodie selection, your sweater collection, your crew neck selection, and Homefield's got you covered. They actually are shipping us some free merch this week, and we got a commission check from them today. So I'm all Homefield Apparel, baby. So go support them and check out our merch store as well on alamoaudible.com. Got a lot of great stuff there for you guys to browse and choose from. And if you're a Patreon supporter, you get a discount every time you buy any item from us. How awesome is that? All right, guys. Well, thanks again for listening. Be sure to follow us on all social media outlets. And we'll see you guys back next week to break down this UTSA FAU matchup in the Alamodome.